Welcome back to the deep dive. If you've been following along, you'll know we've been really digging into Eugene McMillan's autobiography, Vagabond on Victory Road.
Yeah, and today's the day. We're wrapping it up. This is our 14th and final look at Eugene's incredible journey.
We're focusing on the very end of the book, the last chapter, which is called Triumphal Return of the Vagabond, and then the epilogue.
That's right. And it's all Eugene's own perspective, looking back on finally getting home and, figuring out what it all meant.
So our mission today, well, we want to trace those last steps Eugene took towards home, see how he managed to return with his head held high. There's a great story there.
Oh, yeah. And share that homecoming moment, and then really dive into his reflections in the epilogue. He talks a lot about God's guidance and how his faith shaped, well, the next nearly 40 years of his life.
Okay, let's jump in. Eugene's heading north, right? He's just gotten on a bus in Greenville, South Carolina, aimed for North Carolina.
Yeah, early morning. He describes this scene, the sun coming up over the Piedmont Hills, leaving Greenville behind.
Passing fields, some bare, some with old corn stalks. But his mind wasn't really on the immediate scenery, was it?
No, not at all. He was looking further out, searching the horizon. He was desperate, really, for that first sight of the Blue Ridge Mountains in North Carolina.
Oh, after everything he'd been through, that must have felt huge.
Absolutely. He says he felt that longing for home, that magnetism pulling him back. You can almost feel his anticipation as the bus speeds up and slows down on the hills.
And then he sees them.
Yes, and his description is just lovely. He calls them beautiful and majestic, gracefully arched. He talks about that primeval beauty they always have.
And that classic mysterious veil of blue haze, it makes them look almost unreal from a distance.
Right. And for him, it wasn't just pretty scenery. He felt like the mountains were inviting him in, saying, come, enter within the veil.
Like a promise of refuge, almost.
Exactly. He felt anyone who accepted that invitation wouldn't be disappointed. Seeing the Blue Ridge for Eugene, that was like crossing the threshold back to his world, back home.
Okay, so that sight gives him a boost. He gets closer, Asheville first, which he says felt thrillingly near. Then he spends some of his last few dollars on a ticket to Marion.
Yeah, another 35 miles closer.
Aw.
He's really piecing the journey together now. From Marion, he gets to Morganton. Then he hitches a ride with a businessman going towards Lenoir, his hometown area.
And this is where his mindset gets really interesting. He specifically asks the driver to drop him inside the city limits. Why?
Well, because he was absolutely determined, determined that no one he knew should see him in the state he was in. He'd been living rough for months.
Right. He couldn't bear the thought of arriving looking like a defeated, well, a tramp.
He's very honest about it. He needed a bath, badly. His shoes were shot. He says the heels were worn right down into the uppers. Ouch.
Wow. Yeah.
And he desperately needed clean underclothes. This was basic stuff, but it mattered enormously to him at that moment.
It was about dignity, wasn't it? Not just appearance, but how he felt coming home.
Totally. His exact words were, his return had to be dignified, triumphant, cheerful. Not like some dirty, defeated tramp or hobo.
That's quite a statement, considering the hunger and hardship. He refused to let that define his arrival.
But, looking presentable, even basically clean, costs money. He knew he needed several dollars, and he barely had anything left.
So how did he solve that problem? This is where it gets almost like a movie plot.
It really does. As he's worrying about the money, he gets this feeling, this hopeful prospect. He realizes that the solution had actually been put in place before he even left home.
The buried treasure. I love this part.
Me too. It goes right back to his childhood, playing pirates. He remembered that before he left on his big adventure, he'd actually buried some money, like real buried treasure.
Seriously, he actually buried cash.
Yep, $6 or $7, which was quite a bit back then, mind you. He buried it at the foot of a huge white pine tree near the small stream about 100 yards below our house.
Incredible foresight. Or maybe just a kid's instinct to hide something valuable.
Maybe a bit of both. And he says finding it now, when he needed it for his self-respect, that thrill was even bigger than finding pretend treasure as a boy.
So, okay, he gets dropped off in Lenoir. It's getting dark. He knows the area like the back of his hand, right? The trails, the creek.
Exactly. He heads straight through the woods, over the hills, towards that specific white pine tree.
He gets there just as darkness is really falling.
And from that spot, by the tree, he can actually see his house up on the hill, just faintly. He sees the kitchen window, the well, the barn, chicken coop, pig pen, even the old corn stalks.
Oh, wow. After all that time, he must have just wanted to run straight up there.
He says his heart ached for the old home place. The pull was huge, but he stuck to his mission. Dignity first.
So he finds the spot.
Found the spot, dug down, and there it was. A peanut butter jar of nickels, dimes, and quarters, exactly as he left it.
A peanut butter jar. It's such a perfect, humble detail.
Isn't it? Ties it all back. So he dumps the coins in his pockets and immediately heads back to town. Stores closed around 7 p.m., so he had to hurry.
Right, racing the clock. He gets back to town, finds a department store, manages to slip in without being seen by anyone he knows. That was crucial.
Absolutely key to the plan. He quickly buys shoes, socks, underwear, the essentials, gets in and out fast.
The transformation begins. What's next?
He finds a barbershop where nobody knows him, and there, finally, he gets that bath and a shave.
You can just picture him, right? The dusty vagabond cleaning up, becoming himself again, ready to face home. It's like shedding the journey's hardship.
It really is. A self-made restoration. After all that, he checks his money. He has a little over $1 left.
Just over $1. What does he do?
He goes to a cafe and treats himself to an order of steak and gravy. A final little reward, maybe, fueling up before the last leg.
A well-deserved meal, I'd say. So, clean, fed, new shoes. He's ready.
Ready, he says he felt happy as a lark, his heart rejoicing in the Lord. He walks that last mile and a half back to the house on the hill.
And then the reunion.
The joyful reunion. Mom, Dad, his 3 brothers, his sister, all there. He just talks about the simple joy of being back with them.
And he makes a point about the date, doesn't he? Connects back to something earlier.
He does. He notes he arrived on December 5th. Why does that matter? Because months before, when he was stuck in that jail in Shreveport, Louisiana,
Right, I remember that part.
he'd made what he called a rash but yet in faith statement that he'd be home before Christmas.
Yeah.
And he was, weeks early.
Wow. He saw that as a direct answer to his faith back then.
Clearly.
Yeah.
And he slips right back into life, it seems. Gets a part in the church Christmas play not long after he gets back.
And speaking of church, there's that funny story with his Sunday school teacher, Mr. Pinson.
Oh, yeah, that's great. The first Sunday he's back, Mr. Pinson tells him he'd had a dream the week before. In the dream, Eugene came home, and his shoes were so worn out they had neither heels nor soles.
Which was pretty much exactly how they were before he bought the new ones.
Exactly. Eugene tells him the real story, and they just have this big laugh together. Like, wow, that was close. A moment of relief, you know.
That shared laugh, and it connects to something symbolic he did.
It does. Remember, after he bought the new shoes with his buried treasure money, on the way back towards home, he stopped by the creek.
And he threw the old worn-out shoes in.
Yep. And for him, that wasn't just getting rid of trash. It symbolized starting afresh on a new journey with a reshaped life.
A life polished by the friction of trials, he says.
And strengthened by tests of faith.
Oh.
He saw the hardship not as a negative, but as something that had actually prepared him, refined him.
That's a powerful perspective, turning struggle into preparation.
And he realized something else, too. That the path ahead was unknown, sure. But his whole journey had just taught him that sometimes the unknown way, relying on faith, is actually better than a known way.
Which leads us perfectly into the epilogue, doesn't it? Where he looks back at the whole experience from a distance.
Exactly. He starts by marveling at how God seeks people out, saves them. But then he says it's still more wonderful how God guides and provides for believers throughout their lives.
And he touches on hindsight, which I think is something we can all relate to.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That you often don't see the guidance while it's happening. It's only later, looking back, that you might see a pattern or at least sense that God was present.
Even if you don't get all the why answers.
Right. He quotes that psalm, "I will guide thee with mine eye upon thee." It's about trusting that guidance is there, even if it's not clear in the moment.
And a huge piece of that guidance, in his reflection, comes back to that New Testament he was given as a young man.
Oh, absolutely. He says its significance looms large. It was the catalyst. It gave him that greater God consciousness, made him more aware of God and his sensitivity to sin. It shifted his whole inner world.
It wasn't just a book. It changed how he saw everything.
And he credits it, fundamentally, with leading him towards repentance and faith. He says it spearheaded every change for good in his life and was right there at that crucial point of conversion.
So that turning point we talked about weeks ago, he traces it right back to that gift.
He sees it as the first stepping stone. From there came growth, understanding, fueled then by the whole Bible.
And its influence didn't stop there. He saw it guiding major life choices later on.
Yeah, he lists them. Leading prayer groups, teaching, evangelism, even choosing his wife.
Hmm.
He felt the Bible's principles were the bedrock for all these big decisions.
And that leads to another huge decision he and his wife made together.
To go to Moody Bible Institute. And while they were there, they joined a missionary prayer group. Eugene sees this whole sequence, starting with that little New Testament, as a kind of chain reaction,
Chain reaction leading where?
leading to them being accepted as missionaries with Baptist Mid-Missions. And they were sent to serve in the Windward Islands in the West Indies.
Wow. And how long did they serve there?
He says nearly 38 years.
Nearly 4 decades. So when you think about it, the entire Vagabond story, we follow the hardship, the uncertainty, the reliance on faith, even the buried treasure moment. He presents all of that as the necessary preparation for those decades of service.
It's an incredible reframing, isn't it? All those trials weren't random or wasted. They were forging the person who could then go and serve for almost 40 years in a challenging environment. He called that service the joyful privilege of holding forth the word of life.
The very word that changed him guided him.
Yeah.
He spent his life sharing it.
And he ends by saying how much comfort and companionship that New Testament provided throughout all the adventures and trials he wrote about. He was there from the start right through to the end of the narrative.
It really puts the whole journey in perspective. The rough road wasn't a detour, it was the path, shaping him for what came next. The resourcefulness, the faith needed daily.
Yeah, you can see how those things would be essential for decades of missionary work, right? Problem solving, dealing with uncertainty, relying on something bigger than yourself. The Vagabond experience built the missionary.
What an amazing arc. From that restless kid leaving home to this seasoned missionary looking back with such clarity and purpose.
We've seen his grit, that clever buried treasure moment, the warmth of coming home, and underpinning it all, that deep, unwavering faith tied back to that first New Testament.
It makes you think, doesn't it? When Eugene insisted on returning with dignity, drawing on that hidden resource, what personal treasures, maybe inner strengths or surprising skills, have you found you could rely on when things got tough?
Yeah, and his point about hindsight, how guidance often only becomes clear looking back. How might your own path look different years from now? What unseen hand might be guiding things that you can't perceive at the moment?
And here's a final thought to maybe take with you. If Eugene's whole difficult wandering experience was the training ground for nearly 40 years of service, how can the challenges, the confusing parts, the unexpected turns in your life right now be preparing you for a purpose you haven't even glimpsed yet?
Thanks so much for joining us for this entire journey and for this final deep dive into Vagabond on Victory Road.